next up, we moved on to one hell of a match. This was between Bret the Hitman Hart and the Macho Man Randy Savage, who had turned Wolfpack at that stage. And we had a special guest referee here, Roddy Piper. Now, if you know Piper, you know he is not one to be an inactive participant in a matchup such as this. And at the 45-second mark, he made his presence known by throwing Hart into the ring to face Savage, because Hitman was wasting a hell of a lot of time at the start of the match not getting into the ring. It was the first time these two guys had ever even fought each other, I believe. I could be stand to be corrected on that, but I believe it was the first time they'd really come together in a one-on-one match, and took all that time. I'm sure somewhere back in the day they may have fought one another, but certainly not on a major WWF card, I believe. Now basically, this is a great match to check out, some great action. This match ended with Hollywood Hogan coming out to the ring at the end, and Piper found himself knocked out during the match. And of course, with Piper down, Hogan ran out, managed to knock Savage out, and wrapped Savage's legs around the ring post. Hart then put Savage into the sharpshooter for the second time, this time garnering the tap out for the win. And to add insult to injury, Hart even spat on Savage, as Savage writhed in pain in mid-ring after the match. This was to be the last time for some time we'd see Savage in a WCW ring. His knee was stuffed at that point, and he was a gone burger. But another great highlight of the match and a first-up meeting between these two.